Hello, world. It's me, Dennis. My guest today on Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation is Molly Chen. Molly is a musician, artist, entrepreneur, writer, philosopher, and so much more. And we dug deep. As an intro, Molly graciously agreed to play us into the conversation. Enjoy. Thank you for inviting me into your studio, all of us.
Thank you for having me, Dennis. It's been
Molly, as I was watching your keynote, I see how music saved your life. It
yes,
was coming on the outside of depression and seeing depression being connected to purpose and lack of purpose, and you connected it and it happened. Thank you, music.
yeah. It was a very interesting journey because I did not know I wanted to go to music school until I decided I wanted to go to music school. It was a shock to everybody, including myself. Yeah.
It was, but yet music flows through you. It's
Yes.
a throughput. So how did that disconnect happen when you stopped music and you walked away from it? Was the world calling to you? Was all of the, I mean, coming from Taiwan
Mhm.
and coming here to a completely new culture, coming into this entire and all of the bombardment that we have of the way we should be and the things that we should be and what is acceptable and not. What a challenge it is for a young woman of this deep talent that you have.
I wasn't, people say this a lot, but the funny thing is I didn't feel I was brave. At that time I feel like at that time it felt like I had no choice because I was severely depressed. I had been depressed for several years by then, and I couldn't find a way out. And in order to survive, I need a reason to stay alive. And I searched high and low, and I thought of everything, and I just basically looked through all my entire life and tried to find a reason for myself to stay alive, and I couldn't. And at that time, I ended up the only reason that I could find for me to stay alive, the only source of my joy at that time turned out to be music. And I thought it was strange. It didn't make sense. It certainly doesn't make me money. Even at 20 years old, you are already thinking about what am I gonna do in the future? What kind of jobs do I want to have? If I stay alive, eventually I have to make money. And so this path of going into music, it's like before you start, you already know you are not going to make money. But that was the only thing I wanted at that time. So that was the only thing I could see, that I could think of. And I was not thinking about courage or anything. I was just thinking about, how do I make this happen? This is the only thing I want. This is the only thing that can make me happy. And if I want to stay alive, which I was sure my parents would want me to stay alive, so I had to think of something, and that something was music.
People talk about depression, and like anyone who's not gone through depression, I don't think has any idea to understand what depression is. To say cheer up, it's like standing on the side of a lake when someone is drowning for the third time and say, don't drown.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
It's just not possible. But your route through depression and going through this, how did you make it through? Was it a matter of therapy and self-talk and journaling? And what was your path, so that we can have that as a way of understanding that better?
For me, of course, this is like all looking back. That was what I did, but at that time, I didn't know. At that time, I didn't know what I was doing, or yeah, at that time I didn't know. But looking back, I could see it was because, like you said, I started journaling when I was 14 years old, and I've been doing it almost every day since then for 3 decades. And so it's been it's this habit has been just extremely helpful for me. Of course, during my darkest days, sometimes I actually journaling the way I journaled, because I kept really digging into the deepest parts of my shadows, and that was not very comfortable, and it was terrifying sometimes, and it ended up not being so great for me. But most of the time, I think journaling is amazing, because when I look back to where I was feeling all the despair, and then I could see, when I look back, I could see, oh, I used to feel like that, but I have pulled through, and I got through that. I survived. So I found courage in my own journal, knowing that this too shall pass. No matter how bad I feel, I could keep going. And so journaling was great for me. And also I went through years of therapy, which I believe therapy could be very beneficial for some people, but for me, it didn't work that well, because I have always been highly self-aware. I think that was just my nature. So with me being highly self-aware, I tended to intellectualize everything. I understood how therapy worked, and because of that, it didn't work for me anymore.
It's like I had the same thing with hypnotism. I couldn't be hypnotized because I
Yeah,
would constantly go,
right,
"Oh, am I hypnotized? Am I?"
right. Hypnosis doesn't quite work well doesn't work for me either, because yeah, I know how hypnosis works, and then again, it doesn't work. Yeah. But then another thing helped me, which I would say is the ultimate reason I survived. That was my spirituality, my spiritual belief. And I've always, I'm a Buddhist, but I don't think one has to be a Buddhist to really understand or learn all the spiritual lessons in life. But I
Right,
think it is very, very important um, to be spiritual
right.
because,
Each one of us has a path, correct?
yes,
And to
yeah,
find that path, that individual path that will, but it all, it appears to me that it all leads back to the source, like
yes,
two
yes,
going up
right.
the mountain one side and someone else is going up the mountain, but we're both going up the mountain.
Yes, yes. And then if you actually look deep into every religion in this world, like pretty much they are talking about the same thing. Now the issue is not which religion you believe in, but it's like, can you actually be true to yourself? Can you actually trust that there is a higher power? There is something that's larger, higher than us that we don't understand. And this limited human experience is just this, it's limited. So what we really need to focus on is not the limitation of this human life, but through this limitation, it's kind of like the negative art. You can see that you cannot see. That's what spirituality is to me. So
That's
so like
wonderful. And
this human experience is so small and limited, and that is why we feel so confined, and that's why a lot of people become depressed. And when you are depressed because of this limitation, of course your feelings are totally valid because this is true. It is like we will all die one day. How sad is it? So if you only look at from this perspective that we will all die one day, then you immediately see death, you see despair. But if you can see the thing, the spiritual side over this whole limitation, then you know, oh, when we die, then we transform into different energy. Like, and then even when our loved ones die, their energy is still there, and that is how you can feel that, that's how you can experience and uh, experience the unlimited, the omnipresent love and eternity. I think that is what ultimately pulled me out of depression, knowing that this limited human life, this is only an experience, this is a game, this is a creation, kind of like an art creation. It could be a novel, it could be a movie, um, whatever you call it, but this thing is just a result, a created, it's yeah, it's, I like to call it art because I'm an artist myself. So yeah, so I want to have a life that is like I create this artwork. I turn my life into a piece of art, and then I wanted my turn. And I did not want, when I was deeply depressed, I did not want uh, my life to just end in this suicide. I didn't want people to say, oh, she was just so talented, but she just lived too short. Her life was too short, so we never got to see anything she was able to create. I didn't want that.
Molly, you now, in addition to your art, or as another aspect of your art, you want to communicate this to
Yes,
people. You want to share the gift that you got from depression, the gifts
yes,
that you learned from your life. You're looking to share them with us, with both your keynoting and to taking it out to the world for us to be able to heal as you have.
yes. This is actually a promise that I made to myself when I was going through suicidal depression. It was I prayed a lot at that time. uh, even though I've been a Buddhist since very young age, but I've been a skeptic. Like it's faith, this kind of stuff. Faith is like it is really hard for humans. It's just very hard. So I wanted to believe in the higher power, but I couldn't. But it doesn't hurt to pray, right? Because I just didn't have anything. So I prayed a lot at
Prayer
that
is
time.
conversation, isn't it, Molly? I mean, it's a conversation that we have to build a relationship
Yes,
with a power greater than we are. And to have these conversations is an ancient practice.
yes. I think like so at that age, instinctively knew. I just felt the urge to pray. I felt like, all right, I don't necessarily believe in the higher power, but I have also never tried to pray to a higher power. So how can I say I don't believe in it if I don't try it first, right? You gotta try everything before you can deny it. So I tried, and it, I actually had a pretty good result apparently. But at that time, I prayed and I said I wanted to survive this, and if I survive it, if I can live, if you let me live, then I will share my experience with the world, and I promise that I will do anything I can to live a good life, and I will pretty much I changed my whole personality, changed how I look at the world, because I felt that was what got me into that hole of depression. So yeah, so eventually I decided, I committed to staying alive, and then I started looking at life in a different way. So that was when my life just turned around. It was not because of my it's not because my external conditions changed. It was because I changed. And that's really like what I want to share with the world, with people who are suffering from depression. You have to change, really.
Because we create our reality from the inside out rather than the
Yes,
outside in.
yes,
I find my attitude, Molly, to be like a bow wake in front of me, that it carries me forth. That if
yes,
I have
yes,
a good attitude, I will have the experiences will be commensurate with
yes,
the attitude that I'm carrying within. So I mean,
yes,
it's so important for me to first look at that attitude and know that I cannot change people, places, or things, but I
yeah,
can work on my attitude.
yes. And this is like extremely difficult to do, because I've been trying to do this for decades, and I didn't I do believe different people have this is like a natural tendency, because I know that even as a child I was pessimistic. I don't know where I learned that from. Of course, you can spend years of therapy to figure out where you learned that from. Is it from your parents, or is it like your genes or your culture or whatever? You can try to figure that out, but it doesn't matter to me, because I already know I was a pessimistic child. So now that I know, I don't need to spend years of therapy. I'm trying to figure out. I just skip that part. I know I was like that as a child, and I could see my other friends who are optimistic. They think totally different from me, and I didn't understand why some people can live their life that way. Why do they always see the positives, and why do I always see the negatives? And I used to think it was stupid for people to think always look at the positive side, because I thought, that is just not right. Life is not like that. Don't you see this side? Don't you see like all this like terrible things happening? But they choose to see the positive, and they're happy. So eventually I thought, what if I change myself to look at things, from a positive angle, just like my friends do? And after several years, I actually was able to rewire my brain. And I would say I'm now a pretty positive person. It didn't happen overnight, but
No,
yes, I
that was the
do.
thing which you said, Molly, is that it took years of practice. It's the
Yes,
same thing that you didn't play that piano and so beautifully without years of practice, right? I mean,
right.
isn't this rewiring of our brain or the
Yes,
rewiring, doesn't it take the same kind of fortitude and the
yes,
continuation to be able to do that?
yes. Yes, and I actually, you just reminded me of something really interesting. I actually did a calculation on how long it takes to rewire one's brain. Now, this sounds interesting. Have you ever heard of this 10,000 hour principle
Yes,
thing? So if you
absolutely.
spend,
10,000
right,
hours in order to have a level of expertise to be able to do
yes.
it. Absolutely.
So that was actually what I did. Looking back, I could see I did not have a confidence. I did not have the confidence of being a professional pianist until I definitely could see after about 10,000 hours of practice. I actually added up, like, okay, from this age to this age, I practiced how many hours a day. And when I went to music school, I practiced how many hours a day. And it did end up that I spent about 10,000 hours before I was confident enough to say that I'm a concert pianist. And then so when I look back and see when I decided to start changing to rewire my brain or think differently, it really took several years of daily practice. I started with doing gratitude journal, writing down maybe 5 things that you're grateful for, that kind of stuff. And at first it just felt so fake. It felt totally just,
Exactly. I know
yeah,
exactly what you're saying, and it doesn't like what this isn't getting me anywhere.
right. But I kept trying and I kept trying and trying until one day I actually forgot I was doing the gratitude journal. Eventually I forgot to write it. But then I realized when I forgot to do those exercises, that was also when it was already like ingrained in me. Like it was, I had become like that. Like I had become a positive person. Just I don't know since when, but I know it took me years. And it was not just doing the gratitude journal, and I like in my daily journal. Every time I start to write down things that I used to think was negative, and now I was able to start turning things around, start to force myself or um yeah, just push myself to think in a different way.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
Molly, because that's my opportunity is to either to say, am I going to focus on what's not there, or am I going to focus on what's there?
right,
And
right,
it
right.
gives me the opportunity. That's my choice. That's the level of choice. I may not be able to change that at that instant, but I can change what I focus upon. And I have
Yes,
found in my life that what I focus upon grows. If I
yes,
focus upon all the things that I don't have or where I'm not, that's going to grow. And I'm going to pay attention to that part of it more intensely. If I pay attention to the things that I have and the growth and the and my opportunities, those things are going to grow because naturally, in a natural part, I feel that that's one of the laws of the universe.
yes, yes, yes. And I definitely have, I am living proof of it. And it's like it's sad that because I've been um listening to, like, when I'm on TikTok or social media, I could see how how a lot of people are struggling, and they cannot see this part. They cannot see this side, and I feel like they're just not trying hard enough. And they think they are trying hard enough, but they're not. Because because I have done it myself. I know it is really hard. The problem is most people who have done it, like me, who people who have tried, people who have done it, they don't talk about how hard it is. So people who are still trying to do this, they just assume it's not that hard. But
Exactly. They assume but to know that it is hard and then to have that encouragement to stay on the path
yes,
when it gets difficult.
yeah. It's kind of, it's almost like weight loss. Like everybody knows how to lose weight, right? You eat less or you eat healthy and then you exercise. So
Sure.
easy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so easy to learn these principles. I know how to lose weight. I still haven't hit my weight loss goal because I'm not really doing it. So you have to keep doing it until it really becomes your lifestyle and it just becomes part of you. So it's easy, very, very easy to teach these things, but or it's easy to learn these principles, but it's hard to actually do it and become successful at it. I think that is where people fail because they don't keep going, they don't keep trying, they don't have enough patience for themselves. They can't trust the process. They try a little bit and they don't see results, and then they give up, and then they say, "Oh, I'm just genetically supposed to be depressed for my entire life. I'm just this is just a chemical imbalance." And I can tell you that I do believe that mental illnesses run in my family. So I do believe perhaps I had a chemical imbalance as a child because at that young age, when I grew up in a very caring, loving family, but as a child, even when I was very young, I was already unhappy for whatever reason. I was highly sensitive. That was just my personality. I tend to see things in a negative way. So you can say that's my personality. You can say it's a chemical imbalance. It could be from whatever trauma. It does not matter. It does not matter to me anyway because I am able to change the direction of my life by rewiring my brain, by changing how I think. So I don't think chemical imbalance
It
is,
isn't. It's just all well, it's just all part of our process. One of the things that I'm impressed with is how you have changed that voice inside your head because I hear in your keynote, you really let that voice out. You let
yeah,
that voice that was really negative, that beats up on Molly out. Why? I mean, I hear her so much, but you have changed that voice to make it softer and more loving toward yourself. How can you talk about that? Because that's something I've been doing for me that has been
yeah.
important in my life.
Yeah, so that part, I still have that part. I still hear the negative voices all the time. But like you said, they have become much more uh, tolerable. I hear them in the background, but now they're not driving. I'm driving. So, but I think first of all is the awareness. You have to have the awareness that those negative mental chatters, they are just okay, they're part of you. They are the ancient evolutional survival human mechanism part of you. So there, for some people, it would be louder, and for some people, it may not be that loud. Now, for me, there was one trigger, believe it or not, one trigger for me that made the negative voice louder and louder was because I I was a writer. I was training to be a writer. So the way writers think is you have a single thread of thought and you develop that thought. You keep developing that thought until it becomes a novel. So that's how writer's mind works. And I was a pretty accomplished writer even as a teenager. So I knew that was how writing works. You have a thought, you develop it, you make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So when you are a depressed writer, you have a single thread of a small depressing thought that you turn it into a gigantic depressing thought, and everything that generates from that thought is depressing.
The magnificent magnifying mind.
Right. So I later figure out, okay, if I keep writing like this is just how my mind would go. It would just basically turn me into this gigantic negative thought pattern. So that was part of the reason I stopped writing for many years and then went into music. Because music, it's not negative thoughts or positive thoughts. Music is melody, emotions, and repetitive practice. It's a complete different thought process, and it was meditative. So that was part of the reason how music helped me survive. And another thing that you mentioned, okay, so because of my awareness as a writer, when I learned, okay, so if you keep holding on to that single thread of negative thoughts, it's just gonna become bigger negative thoughts, right? So what you do is you don't hold on to it. When the negative thought just starts to grow in your head, you ignore it. You just ignore it. It will still keep growing, and you just ignore it. It's kind of like gardening. Whatever you water will grow, right? So if you don't water your negative thoughts, then they don't grow. Because we are, especially today, as so many people have ADHD, you have one negative thought, you ignore it, and then you move on to some other different thoughts. Yeah, I don't have ADHD, but I have noticed, yes. So if you don't keep thinking about your negative thoughts, you acknowledge it, you see it's there, and you're like, okay, I see you, you're good. And then you think about something else. So it's kind of like distracting yourself in a way, distracting yourself to see the good thing, the positive things in your life. And that is not to say these negative thoughts are not valid, but you also don't want to exaggerate them to make them bigger or worse than you have to suffer. We already have enough things in life that we suffer from. We don't want to make them bigger.
Molly, thank you for today.
Yeah,
I look forward to getting a chance to get to know you and to learn from and with you as you continue to connect with people and connect with people out in the world, and to share this wonderful healing journey that you're on, that comes through your music and through your self-work that you're doing in order to be able to grow and heal.
yeah, thank you. It was great. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, and thank you everyone for watching today on Reasonably Spontaneous Conversation with me, Dennis Tardan, and the wonderful, amazing Molly Chen. Thank you, and we'll see all of you next time. Imagine if you were able to watch your great-grandparents tell stories from their lives. What made them laugh? What moved them? How they responded to adversity and triumph? And what impacted their existence? That would be a treasure. Now you can offer that gift to your loved ones. Hello, I'm Dennis Tardan. For more than 45 years, I've been a professional interviewer documenting the lives and times of hundreds of people. I will guide you or your family member through the important stories of your lives using my unique interviewing skills. I'm now offering my legacy interviews worldwide via Zoom from the comfort of you or your loved one's own home. All you need is a webcam, and I will do the rest. Contact me today to schedule your legacy interview.